Welcome, everybody. I'm going to introduce our panelists real quick. We're going to start with Oklahoma. We recently came from a psychedelic symposium in Oklahoma, in Tulsa, that was run by Oklahoma Psychedelic Collective, and it was excellent. So we encourage you to travel to these symposiums that are being held in other places that are nearby. The learning is amazing. Introducing first Dr. Chad Johnson. Dr. Chad Johnson is a licensed psychologist. Yeah, thank you. Sure. He's a licensed psychologist, associate professor of counseling at the University of Oklahoma, and clinical assistant professor of psychiatry at OU's College of Medicine. He brings over 2 decades of experience in psychotherapy, training, and research with a focus on transpersonal psychology, trauma, grief, and psychedelic-assisted therapy. Dr. Johnson is a co-founder of the Oklahoma Psychedelic Collective and holds certificates from CIIS and Palo Santo therapy in ketamine and psychedelic-assisted modalities. One of his co-founders, Christina Conrad, is not able to be with us today. Unfortunately, she was ill. I'm going to read her bio anyway because I want you to know about the work that she's doing. Christina Conrad is a somatic psychotherapist and executive director of Palo Santo Therapy in Oklahoma. She specializes in trauma healing and psychedelic-assisted therapy, including ketamine, psilocybin, and MDMA-assisted work. Christina is trained in EMDR, somatic experiencing, and yoga nidra, and provides therapy and community education throughout Oklahoma. Her approach is rooted in body awareness and spiritual integration, offering clients a grounded path to healing and wholeness. So thank you, Oklahoma, for being here. Next, we have Missouri. Joshua Wahba is president of the Psychedelic Society of the Ozarks and senior vice president of Dynamic DNA Labs. He helped launch the world's first psychedelic DNA test and organizes regional education, advocacy, and ceremony. As co-creator of the EMC² Festival, Joshua blends science, spirituality, and community to support conscious healing. His work honors the sacred wisdom of plant medicines while advancing personalized, harm reduction-based approaches to psychedelic care. Marisa Frazier is helping out with that effort as your events chair of the events committee. She's a trauma-informed yoga and qigong instructor, exercise physiologist, sacred medicine guide, and conservation advocate with a BS in exercise and movement science. She brings an integrative approach to healing through movement, mindfulness, and nature. Marisa also serves as conservation program coordinator for the Missouri Sierra Club. Her mission is to guide others towards health, purpose, and planetary healing through embodied practices and ceremonial work. Thank you for being here and representing Missouri. But, by the way, this is my home state. I grew up in Missouri. And finally, we have Kansas. Ian Cook is a certified health and wellness coach, consultant, and founder of Alva Consulting and the Lawrence Psychedelic Society. Based in Lawrence, Kansas, Ian offers psychedelic preparation, integration, and guided experience rooted in whole person healing. He collaborates with ketamine clinics and service providers to improve outcomes through a blend of evidence-based practices and holistic insight. Ian's work supports transformation by helping clients co-create practices that nurture emotional and spiritual well-being. And finally, we have Anissa Fannenstiel. Anissa is a licensed clinical social worker and certified somatic psychedelic psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience. She leads the Mind and Body Healing Collective in Lawrence, Kansas, offering ketamine-assisted therapy through the Somaverse program. Anissa integrates EMDR, brain spotting, mindfulness, and regression therapy in her trauma-informed approach, emphasizing connection to body, soul, and authentic expression. Her work centers on deep healing through psychedelic and non-ordinary states of consciousness. Thank you for coming. They drove the car based on it's about a 4-hour drive, right? Yeah. Thank you for being here. And finally, we have Jake and me. We're just over here at the end. If you have any questions about what's happening in Arkansas, we'll be here to answer those questions. But I would really want to give a lot of time to our guests here because we have limited time with them. So I'm going to leave this slide up here so you can see everybody's names and you can ask questions. But I'd like to start first by just kind of going down the line. I'd like you to give us all a couple minutes synopsis of what's going on in your state, both from an advocacy perspective and from a community building perspective. So let's start here at the end of the table and start with you, Marisa.
So thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here and really grateful for this experience. We have a lot of really exciting things. So we're both located in Springfield, Missouri, Psychedelic Society, the Ozarks. We have a lot of really exciting things building in the works right now. Just since launching in January, we have 70 members in the Psychedelic Society of the Ozarks. There's a lot of momentum. We've got monthly, more of the organizational style meetings, and we also have monthly community nights.
Library announcements.
And something that we are really excited to be bringing on September the 6th, we're going to be organizing our first Psychedelic Freedom Missouri Conference. We have some really exciting speakers. Thank you. Really exciting speakers lined up. So that's going to be at the Oasis, September 6th. And bringing in a lot of different societies. We've been collaborating with other psychedelic societies from across the state of Missouri. And we're going to be, we're actually in talks of forming like a statewide ethics and resource sharing panel. And that's going to feed into, right now, there's talks of a statewide trade organization as well, so that business interests, other organizations can pool our resources and really influence change in Jefferson City and in the legislative process. So that's all something that's just been coming together in the last month. There's a lot of momentum going on in Missouri, and there's also a lot going on. Well, really, honestly, Missouri has made a ton of progress by way of legislative proposals. So in the last, since 2023, there's been 6 bills introduced in the state legislature to create more expansive access to psychedelics. So the first couple of years were a little bit more based on efforts to create research. And then in 2025, it shifted a little bit more to just being able to create access to psilocybin for people who have had various mental health conditions, as well as victims of sex trafficking and law enforcement officers and veterans. So those bills did not pass this year, but I spoke with one of the representatives yesterday who introduced it this year. He's intending to introduce it again next year. And something that we're likely to see and to advocate for is he will probably introduce it again for broad access for various mental health conditions. And we are probably likely to see it be compromised into access for veterans and law enforcement officers, just based on the talks that are going on right now and in those caucuses in the off season. That's probably what will happen. But as long as the bill is passed through the legislative session, instead of a initiative petition process, it can still go in and be added to and amended later on. So it's not necessarily optimal for the first, out the gate, but it is certainly a foot in the door because we have a lot of veterans in Missouri. We have a lot of people who are struggling with PTSD, and they know that there needs to be alternative treatments and expanded healing modalities. So with that said, I do, hopefully we'll have some time. I'd like to come back and kind of talk about the process. Just sharing from my experience with this year, but we do a lot of community organizing to influence change. So if there is time, if anybody has interest, please do ask, and I'd love to kind of share about the process of how do we go about enacting that change? How do we truly create influence and bring our voices together to actually shift policy and to truly create access in the state. But I don't want to give enough time for everybody else. So, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Marisa.
Come back.
Let's do one person from each state, and then we'll go across and catch the people who didn't get to talk first time.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Chad Johnson from Oklahoma, co-founding with Brenda Pearsall and Christina Conrad. We all, the Oklahoma Psychedelic Collective, or OK Psycho. So, and attention grabbing. So, we're also new, just beginning, starting this organization, this collective. The three of us, Brandon and I have known each other for years. Christina, I just got to meet through starting something like this, but essentially, it just kind of came on our radar last year, a House bill that had been proposed in Oklahoma a couple of years ago. And I had been in Oklahoma for about 20 years, and my psychedelic journey began around the early 2000s when I discovered through personal experiences how powerful and healing they could be. But then I moved to Oklahoma and I said, well, that's done. There's no way I'm going to find any legal way or much access here in Oklahoma to pursue this. So even though I'm a psychologist and a psychotherapist, I really just separated that part of my life out of my academic work. Until recently, and I can't even recall the event, but something happened last summer where it finally came back on my radar. I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's passion of mine is knowing the healing of psychedelics. And immediately, I'm an academic, and I see that there's this really, this renaissance happening, this great research being done all over the country. Why am I sitting on the sidelines? I really know how important this is, so I need to, but I can't do this on my own. I need to find out who else is doing this. And then somehow came to find out that Brenda, who I've known for years, just got certified through CIIS herself. And I was like, well, that's one good person to start with. And I think through word of mouth, heard about Christina, we all came together over coffee or lunch somewhere and said, we need to start a collective. We're full-time working people, like I'm sure many of the other advocates here are. And I don't have expertise in lobbying. I don't have expertise in policy writing. None of us did. But we know these things are important. So let's use our enthusiasm and the knowledge we have, and serve as a collective. We want to collect and bring anyone and everyone. We want to be inclusive, we want to be diverse, from practitioners to citizens, educators, academicians, everyone. Religion, churches, everything. Let's see, let's build a coalition, let's build a collective so we can work together. We don't have all this expertise. And we've seen how so many nonprofits too struggle to stay on their silos, get competitive with others. We did not want to have that attitude or mindset. Like, I know other people have made inroads here. Let's find out who they are in Oklahoma City and beyond. Like here, I'm so excited to be here with these folks to make these connections and learn from them about how to do this effectively. So that's how it started, just the three of us. We're still getting going. It's very new, but we are making good inroads. I'm not sure what our membership is up. We've, through Christina's practice, she's at the Palo Santo Therapy Center, founded this open plane symposium. Many of you I've met there last year and the year before. I think it's been 2 years now. It's been highly attended. Sarko spoke at ours, our last one in the spring. It's really exciting, building momentum, and OPC is kind of attached to that as well. It's one of the things we offer the community in education. And so we're pursuing two routes. Something I just learned at the Psychedelic Science Conference in Denver a couple weeks ago. Some of you might have been there as well. It's the Big Max Conference, 8,000 people there. That's amazing. I've been in psychology and science for a long time. I've never been to a conference with 8,000 attendees. That's wild. So this is real. It's happening. And so exciting to see this room filled with people who are also plugged in and interested in how to move this forward into our culture, into our communities to provide healing, decriminalization, and all that, and do it responsibly. So at the conference, I learned, and I'm still learning this, that we have an application for a non-process. I learned that you might need a different one if you're doing lobbying and advocacy. Yeah, good. So, oh, great. Well, we've got one on the books for education, but we apparently need to do another one to do lobbying and advocacy and policy. So, gone on longer than I intended to, but I will say that bill did not pass, even though in the House, the state House, it was like 66 to 23 in favor. So it passed overwhelmingly with bipartisan result. It was a psilocybin research bill. It overwhelmingly passed, but it got stuck in the Senate, never really called up to a vote, because as you know how it works, if somebody doesn't like it or is suspicious of it, they just sit on it and it just dies. And that's what's happened. So we're kind of starting at the starting board to both fight for, I hope, for both legalizing research to open that door, but also decriminalizing to at least give us a tool to help fight any of the legal issues that people run into. So just getting started. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Chad. Kansas.
Hi, everyone. There's a lot of people here. Wow. Hi, my name is Ian Cook. I live in Lawrence, Kansas. I have been involved in the psychedelic space for about 4 years now. Really involved. But my experience started about 8 or 9 years ago with a family member who was negatively affected with psychedelics in an abusive situation, and as a result, they have a schizophrenia. And so my education began many years ago of trying to figure out what had happened there. Learning from experts, just trying to find as much information as I could about that. And we have a long family history of being involved with peer support networks, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. They're a big support network. And so my education and all this started with mental health foundations. Going through my own personal journey of recovery, I also have a bipolar 1, which I'm happy to share with folks too. I had a crisis about 4 years ago, got better from the crisis, stabilized, and then engaged with ketamine therapy. And so with my understanding of what happened with this family member, I approached it very carefully, very measured. I was talking to my support system, my therapist, psychiatrist, family, friends. I had this network of people around me, which this family member did not have previously. And so a lot of my work is in education, risk reduction, talking about these things and trying to normalize the conversation of mental health and what this work really looks like. Because I think a big part of the work here in the Midwest is education of what does this look like? How can we explain this in ways that are easy to understand? And so I've been connecting with folks in Kansas. Funny enough, I was looking for people. I was like, who's doing this kind of work? And I wasn't finding anybody. And so I had to go out to Kansas City, out to Missouri. Meeting some folks out in the Kansas City area that are very involved. Ethan Thamby, he's a lobbyist based out of Missouri. He's doing a lot of that work to get these bills in front of people. And so that was my education about 4 years ago. Was like, who's doing what in this area? How can I connect from Lawrence out to Kansas City and then beyond? And then about 2 years ago, I started the Lawrence Psychedelic Society. Again, I was looking for it. And Lawrence is a weird town, if anybody's been there familiar. And so I was flabbergasted. Why is there no organized body? So I started one, just hosting in-person meetings once a month. Very base level. I was putting up flyers downtown, guerrilla marketing. It works, put flyers, people have flyers. And just hosting it once a month. I'm just saying, hey, I'm here, I'm holding space, who shows up? And I think the first meeting, they had 20-some people. And then just over the course of the year, it kind of grew. And so we're about 2 years old now. I think we have 200-something people in our Facebook group. We've got around 100 or so on our mailing list. But we're in a weird spot because we're not a nonprofit. We're not officially formed. We're this weird amorphous blob of people and community and connection. And I think that's what works for us because that enables us to do certain things. I just love the message of thinking like a mushroom. Like what would a mushroom do? Slow, quiet, underground, so that when all this stuff comes up, we have community, we have connection. So that's been my mission, is connecting with existing mental health resources. In my day job, I work with a community mental health center. And just what are the organizations and structures we currently have? We need to connect with those. And then in Kansas, I have just from talking to politicians and representatives and just general common day everyday people in the Midwest, we're addressing veterans, first responders, frontline care, police, fire, sheriff, EMS. We're looking for addiction treatment, depression, PTSD. These are the things that we are suffering from on a daily basis, and how can we help the people that are serving our communities? When I start those conversations with people, I've never been shut down. I've never been outright said no. People are curious, and I think that's how we explain these things with certain words and terminologies, and make it so that they can understand, so that it's not this scary thing, because there's so much misinformation, and there's a lot going on. And so that's my work. I see Kansas as a blank canvas, and we get to paint a picture, and by doing that, we build community, we find partners, we educate, safety, risk reduction. I think if we can lay the foundation correctly, it's the first time, we don't have to go back to fix it. So, thank you.
Jake, do you want to tell us a little bit about what's happening here and what we've been doing?
Yeah, we do that. I'm Jake Fitzmaurice. We met Beth and Joseph a couple years ago on their back porch and decided that we didn't think it was right for people to go to jail and be put through this. So we're learning as we go. We're just we started like a mushroom and grew underground and tried to learn and educate ourselves the best we could about the community and people's opinions on this in the area. And now we're starting to come up from underground and be more public, and we're trying to talk to engage with anyone who will be willing to talk to us. From first responders and police officers and city council members, and just trying to do what we can. We're hoping to explore all avenues of anything to reduce the penalties, legislation, decriminalization, whatever makes sense. And we've got to start somewhere, so we're just trying to engage in conversations with people. It's interesting. We haven't been shut down a whole lot either, kind of like Ian said. A lot of people are interested, and it's very interesting because you try to make an assumption that somebody's going to be against it, and then you engage with them and try to get them to ask why and understand things. And it turns into a whole different conversation, and so it's fun. We're going to keep going. We're in it for the long run. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Let's take it back to the end of the table and talk to Missouri again. So we've heard a little bit about your advocacy work. Can you tell us a little bit more about that community building aspect that you've been doing, especially with the festivals you've been doing, and like, how are you getting people connected?
Absolutely. First, it's an honor to be here. My name is Dr. Wahba, President and Chairman of Psychedelic Society, the Ozarks, and one of the co-founders of Earth Medicine Community and Consciousness Festival. As Marisa alluded to, in January, we created a 501c3. In the first 6 months, we could have never anticipated the growth that we were going to have. Every month, we've seen membership rise. And a lot of that's just been intentional building a container for people to come into, feel safe with other like-minded people, to explore education, awareness, and connection. So a big focus of ours is connection. We feel connection is medicine. Community is medicine. The medicine is in you, the medicine is in the people. People help people heal. So the sacraments and the sacraments are beautiful tools. But what we're seeing and what we're building is a community where people can connect and heal. We do this through keeping people engaged, not only on once a month, large monthly meetings, but as Marisa stated, community nights throughout the month. Member-only meetups with barbecues, or you get together like this past Thursday, we tie-dye shirts, our Psychedelic Society shirts together. We go to book clubs, right? We come together, we share a book that we're reading, the impact it's having on us. So keeping the community engaged. It's been a powerful movement so far, like I said, in the first 6 months. Come September 6th, we are hosting our first conference, a full-day conference, a Psychedelic Freedom Conference at the Oasis Convention Center in less than a year of being a nonprofit. Really excited about that. Not only the vendors that are already reaching out, conscious-minded wellness vendors, but the speakers that are reaching out, and it's going to be a powerful event for where we live. Again, Northwest Arkansas, from the Ozarks, Southwest Missouri, where we're at, Springfield is the Queen City of the Ozarks, so Bible Belt, conservative. But the goal again is not to glorify the substances. The medicine is to bring awareness and education. A civil human right should be the freedom of consciousness. We're not broken. the system's broken. And what I mean by that is they ban natural medicines that helps you know thyself and helps you heal. And they hand you something else that's poison that dims your soul. So again, we're not broken, the system's broken. So we want to continue to walk through the containers where we can explore consciousness together. And that's what we're doing. Earth Medicine Community and Consciousness, again, that was born out of very intentional men and women who wanted to bring a consciousness gathering to help build community. Having workshops every day throughout the day where people can come and learn. Being very intentional with the type of artists and DJs that we bring in, people who are advocates of plant medicine work. We were able to have our first EMC² Festival about a month ago. It was really interesting. So Marisa and I, we went to MAPS, and I was in exhibit at MAPS launching the first psychoactive substance response DNA panel, or psychedelic DNA panel. And we actually, I tore down my exhibitor booth early on the last day. We rushed to the airport, flew back, and then drove from the airport to EMC² for the rest of the weekend. So it's quite the burst and flow of everything there. And I'd like to speak on that actually for a second. So, Beth, I brought that up in the introduction. The company I work for, Dynamic DNA Laboratories, we wanted to very intentionally bring something to the space that can help others. So I had an idea. I brought it to my senior scientist, somebody who's much smarter than myself, a molecular biologist, geneticist, and we already had a pharmacogenetics panel, which is a clinical test, personalized medicine. And I said, could we use the same science and technology to apply this to psychoactive compounds to help people understand how they best metabolize the compounds found in plant medicines and synthetics? So we spent about 2 years keeping it very close to our chest in development, reaching out to some others, bioinformatics companies out of Stanford to the West Coast, and sort of collaborating. And we were able to do it. We soft launched it after Pruna, and then launched it live at MAPS this past year. And it's been a beautiful tool for the space so far. And again, all we're looking at is the science, though, right? We're looking at someone's DNA blueprint. We know in this room there's so many other factors that come into play, right? Setting, environmental factors, lifestyle choices, past traumas. But what we can offer is someone to take a look at their biology and their genetic markers, their receptor sensitivities. So it can help them provide a little bit more predictable experience and confidence and assurance. So yeah, honored to be able to bring that to the space. Do want to touch very quickly on some of those efforts that Marisa brought up. Right now, Missouri is looked at as one of the states to watch. As far as total bills, House and Senate, there's been 6 proposals the past 2 years. The most recent one in 2025 was SB90, and that was to provide access to psilocybin for veterans and survivors of sex trafficking with a state-funded model. Made a good commission at the chamber. However, we are seeing some movement in the Missouri General Assembly just in general the past 2 years. Again, it comes down to bringing that awareness. And I just want to, one, recognize what decriminalized nature of what Arkansas is doing here. Because this is where it starts, right? Is the grassroots, right? This is the foundation of creating that awareness and providing education. There's power in numbers. And so I love seeing this room filled like this, because that's very much what our society, Psychedelic Society, the Ozarks is, right? And we're grassroots. But this is where it starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Anissa. Is it Anissa or Anissa?
It's Anissa.
Anissa.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us about your experiences in Kansas.
Yeah. My name's Anissa, and I am a psychotherapist in Lawrence, Kansas, and I have a practice of other therapists and healers that I work with. And my journey has been, just in general, as a therapist, always wanting to do whatever is the most effective work with my clients and trying to keep up on what those practices are and continually learning. And I kind of came at some of this deeper work through the idea of hypnosis initially, and was really interested in deep states of healing through that and was trained in that for many years. And it's been through my own journeys that I found the effectiveness of both plant medicines and also working in a ketamine clinic, where I wasn't as interfacing with the clients as much. It was more of a medical model, but I got to learn a lot about what ketamine could accomplish with healing. And over the years, just seeing people heal, seeing the different modalities that we're learning about, becoming passionate about how do I share this information, how do I learn more, how do I advocate for people's healing journeys, because I don't think that we should gatekeep what works for people if it's safe and effective. And it's astounding to me, just watching the different modalities over time, working with clients, the effectiveness of non-ordinary states of consciousness, and especially some of those states of consciousness that are accomplished with some of the substances we're talking about today. And I believe it's a right for us to be able to access the care that we deserve. So my role, I really feel like in Kansas right now, is kind of coming up from point of view of how can I educate other therapists, for example. I have a fairly big group. How can we learn together? How can we continue to take this information out into the community? How can we, kind of like we've all talked about, the grassroots work, how can we connect with people that are like-minded and spread the information? And so I'm very interested in a program that I'm introducing into the community, just with the work with the trochees that work really well with ketamine trochees and therapy initially, and being able to start with that doorway, both with our clients and then also with other healers and mental health practitioners, and even community members in conversations, and just how we can continue to connect both in the Lawrence and the metro area, Kansas, by creating opportunities together to train, to educate, and just to actually have people talk about their healing and their transformations in their life. That's very, very powerful. So I'm just really excited to be embarking upon this in a more intentional way, as this journey has been really rewarding personally. And I just want more people to be able to do this work if they're called to it. So thank you.
We're going to do a rapid fire round. I'd like you to think for just a moment, if you could describe in one word what your work has felt like for you. Give yourself 10 seconds to think about it. Pass the microphone down the line and tell us one or two words, maybe two or three, about what maybe your challenges, maybe the best parts or the big wins. Go.
First word that comes to mind is purposeful. Feels like this is a spirit, like heart-led calling.
Being in service, heart-centered, being in service.
I'll say inspiring, just like hearing the stories this morning of people's transformation and healing, this expanded consciousness and becoming better people in their lives and worlds. I think inspiring. This work is deeply inspiring all around. and seeing the people come together this way to push this forward.
So for me, I had 2 words, and I like to think of words, values, archetypes, these powerful things, magic, spells. So I had community written, and then right under that I wrote communication. Communication's been in my life for a very long time, and it's one of the things that I bring to what's good communication, what's good community. They both start with the same letters. They are deeply connected with each other. How can we communicate with each other and connect with each other?
I have 2 words too. I would say expansive and deep. And those 2 things both, being the opposites, but seeing the work both in how it expands people's perceptions and their ways of seeing the world and the opportunities through that lens, and then the depth of the healing that can take place and how powerful it is.
I can think of bravery. It's real brave. We're all going against normal status quo, and it takes people to stand up and talk about it. So that's what I think of.
Now, another question I have is, before I get to the audience questions, is, a lot of us are not lobbyists or politicians, or, there's a lot of learning that comes into play when you step into that arena of not just changing hearts and minds, but changing laws. So as you've been going through this process of learning, what has been one of the biggest surprises? Something you didn't know that you had to learn? This is a rapid fire.
Okay. I think the process of adapting and evolving and learning to communicate with a lot of different people from all over the spectrum, especially when we're talking about influencing laws and people in the Capitol. It's the process of listening to what their values are and learning to adapt to the strategy, and how can we on a deeper level connect to what these people care about is the shared human experience, and knowing that deep down we all really do finally want the same things, but we have to go a few levels in to get to that point. So how do we adapt our strategy and our communication to be able to do that? So that's something I'm continually learning, but it seems to really kind of be a shared center of all of the work.
I'm going to come back to support. Again, these grassroots level movements supporting one another. Again, power in numbers. So the communication to those higher in the state level, and they see the power in the numbers and the support that's going on with the grassroots communities. I think that's the type of change that can happen when we come together.
The word that came to my mind from what I'm learning is trust. Really, I'm skeptical. Who's going to be interested in this? How's this going to happen in Oklahoma? This kind of thing. And then I'm seeing this many people being a part of the other open plains, and trusting the process, trusting the spirit of this movement. Just trusting that spirit, trusting that that mushroom metaphor I love too. So when the time is right, put all the pieces in place, trust the process, trust people. They'll show up, and when it's right and it's working and the timing's right and the soil's good, it'll grow, it'll bloom. So trust.
I was going to try to find a word. I think flow. Flow is a good word. In Kansas, we're kind of far behind in a lot of regards. We were the last state for prohibition. We're struggling a lot with medical, recreational, or decrim cannabis. And so I see plant medicine as just very, very far away in Kansas. I have a suspicion that it might pass federally before it passes to Kansas. Not disinfectively in all, but I think, and so flow, I think context as well, what's the ecology of Kansas, what do we have going on? And so I think we are kind of just sitting and waiting and watching, what are all the states around us doing? How can we learn from them? And then how can we kind of adapt that to when we're ready, when we're we're ready for these things. These things will be there. So that's what motivates me to do all this underground connect with organizations, so that when we can raise up, we have that established foundation for it too. And so yes, so being very practical and saying like, what can we actually do? What's the best use of our time? Education, connection.
I'm really interested in what would our legislator want to know? Like what kind of testimonials, what kind of people in Kansas can find healing through ketamine that can be normalized into maybe these non-ordinary states? How can that information be presented so that it will be heard and seen and understood in ways that might translate into more receptivity from our lawmakers? Because as Ian said, Kansas is kind of far behind in those areas. And so I have been working with an attorney just really trying to understand how an organization can position itself the very best to gather information, to be able to share information. And as we're doing the work, we can also be thinking about how can this affect change in the state in terms of some of these areas we'd like to see shifting in.
I guess what I've been learning along this process is kind of unfortunate, but the difference between politics and policy, and maybe policy and what seems to be best for people is typically not going to win nowadays. So trying to unravel that and figure out how to navigate that and make progress any way that's possible, I suppose, has been a real learning experience.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all of our panel speakers for coming today. It's brave work, as Jake said, that you're all doing, because you really are sticking your necks out in big ways. So thank you for your courage, for your bravery. Nature does love courage, and I hope you're all experiencing those wonderful synchronicities and magical moments when you do something that your body says, whoa, but then your heart says yes, and you do it anyway. It's pretty amazing. So thank you for being here today. One more round of applause for our panel. Thank you.